figure out what Vedanta is talking about. And that has three different parts. One is what we call Shravana. It's not like, please don't think one is one, second is second, and third is third, and there is a chronological order, and you first have to do Shravanam, then Vandanam. In the Shastra, in the teaching itself, all of this is embedded. So that means it all happens. So Shravanam, as we saw, is, as Carl very nicely pointed out, generally the literal meaning of Shravanam is listening, but I can be listening to radio, I can be listening to TV, right? So it can't have such a loose meaning, right? Because then you say anything I listen and that is Pramana Prakriti. So therefore, that word listening has to be factored. Very important. Yeah. So this is why when I say the use of words have to be, if you have to communicate the knowledge accurately, you have to really restrict the meaning of the words and you have to really point what these words mean. Otherwise we have some vague ideas, listen to Shastra. What Shastra, right? So, Tatparya Nishchaya. Tatparya Nishchaya means whenever you read anything, forget Vedas, right? Your attempt should be not to interpret. Because the minute you say, I'm interpreting it, what will happen? You will add your own ideas to it. Anytime you want to read anything, your attempt should be, you may end up interpreting by not understanding, but the attempt is to figure out what the author is talking about. Because when the author wrote something, there was an intention. So you need to capture that intention rather than superimposing your views on it. Because if you do that, you don't catch the intention of the person who's the author. So forget Vedas. Anything that you read, your thing is, very common. Oh, you're teaching Vedanta. Whose interpretation it is? Is it Adi Shankaracharya's interpretation? It's not interpretation. Pramana, by definition, means I keep my opinions aside and try to understand what the intention of Shastra is. So this is what we call Tatparya Nishchaya. A Shastra, as I told you, that there are 6 Vedika schools. Within the Indian philosophy, you have 6 schools of thought which look upon Veda as a means of knowledge. And all 6 of them have different opinions. Nyayayika, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Purvamimamsa, Uttara-mimamsa. All of them honor or they understand Veda as Pramana. But they all have very different conclusions. So Tatparya Nishchaya includes what? What is Vedas or Vedanta talking about? What exactly it wants me to convey about my life? Is it asking me to just kind of be a good human being? That's it? That's all the goal of life is? Is it asking me to do good actions because I can then go to heaven? Or it is showing me certain relationship between me and Ishvara, knowing which is the only solution to the freedom that I am seeking. So that means you need to ascertain. And then suppose, questions within questions for Tatparya Nishchaya. Suppose you say, no, the intention is not to just tell me to be a good human being. The intention is not only telling me that, oh, if you do good actions, not only you will get good results here, but you will also get results hereafter. The intention of Shastra is to show me my relationship with the cause of the universe. Okay, if that is the intention, what is Shastra talking about my relationship with Ishvara? Is it talking about Ishvara as this big entity and I am this small entity and I have to keep relating to Ishvara? Is it talking about there is Ishvara which includes me but I'm only part of Ishvara? Or it is showing me what? That I and Ishvara are totally one. Tatparya Nishchaya. What is it talking about? What it is trying to show me? And what is the method? So different people feel that the Vedas are saying different things. Now, how do I know who is saying the right thing? This is why you have Mimamsa. What is Mimamsa? If somebody is saying something, right? So it comes back to Shastra as a pramana. Shastra, if it is valid, it cannot be contradictory. Right? That is the second abadhita. If it is not contradictable, and suppose you hold an opinion about what Shastra is saying, which is not what Shastra is saying, it will necessarily be contradicted. Do you understand that? So suppose Shastra is saying all that is here is one, and you think that Shastra is talking about I am only part of this whole, then what will happen? That relationship, that understanding that you have is contradictable. So that means if you have really caught the intention, the tatparya of Shastra, then that becomes uncontradictable. Then you have got it. Otherwise, you have projected your own meaning onto it. Okay? So this is the method through which you do. So that's why when we talk about different schools of thought, please understand the intention is never to say that they are wrong. That's not our intention. It's not that, oh, he was wrong or she was wrong or that philosophy is inadequate. It is to give us understanding of what is it that Shastra is. You need to understand it. And if you understand it like this, if you understand it like this, then it is contradictable. It is not to criticize others, it is to improve our understanding. You have to keep in mind. Otherwise, what happens is, suppose in this process, suppose you have devoted your whole life to yoga, suppose, right? And now, in this process of Tatparya Nishchaya, the yoga vision gets contradicted, suppose. Right? So, yeah, it's true, because for Tatparya Nishchaya you require that. They are looking into Veda and they are looking at it from a different standpoint. Now, if it was right, because Pramana has to meet the second condition, Abadhita. If what they were thinking was right, it would become uncontradictable. But because you have a logic to contradict it, it is no longer valid. Are we criticizing the people who are following yoga? It's got nothing to do with looking at people and criticizing. It is a method through which you establish the reality. You understand? So please don't take anything here personally. This is how you lead to the truth, by negating everything else. There is no other method. Right? So don't imagine if you start becoming defensive. Oh, this Vedanta class is, criticizing this yoga which I have devoted my 20 years, So now what kind of, in spirituality we have to be all encompassing. We have to love everyone. We have to just accept everyone. Then you will walk out of the class. Why? Because your image of spirituality involves what? Just whoever says whatever, doesn't matter, they are all right.
This is what we call spiritual bypassing.
Exactly. This is what we call, so that means in everything else we want to know precisely, but in spirituality, oh, let's just accept everything. Let's accept everything means absolutely, as Susan is saying, spiritual bypassing. It's a romantic idea of let us be nice to everyone. We are not here to be nice to everyone. That is wonderful. That is not at all. We are here to know the reality. So that means all these fluffy, romantic ideas have to be set aside. And when the teacher is doing that job, if you start feeling personally threatened, because anybody has invested in something else, in fact you have to be so thankful that Ishvara has brought you here, which makes you see the limitation of things. You have to be very thankful, because if you are living in a bubble, the bubble has to burst in order to take you closer to reality. But if you get threatened by it, what will happen? You will project on the teacher. Oh, this teacher is very intolerant. It's not just accepting everything. No knowledge happens like that. Suppose Einstein said, oh yeah, the classical physics says time and space is absolute. I say it's relative. We are all right because we all love everyone. Give up this looseness when it comes to spirituality. Same thing with pramana. Pramana pravritti is rigorous. In everything else, suppose, people keep telling me all these stories. And there is interesting stories to hear, right? They tell me, oh, somebody just held somebody's hand and the entire knowledge was passed on. Suppose I tell you like that with reference to gynecology. Suppose I tell you, oh, that the professor came and he held your hand and entire knowledge was transferred. How does it sound to you? Laughable. But in the case of spirituality, oh yeah, they are all like flying with some, oh yeah, he transferred the whole thing onto me. So that means we just are in some other world. We create another world.
That means it's very common.
Very common. Spirituality means everything which is, so this is why what you need to understand is, just as in gynecology, which is an advanced understanding, you need to engage. And you need to spend time, you need to spend hours, you need to figure it out. You can't be confused between small things, because you will have hundreds of patients with some similarity and some differences. So what makes a doctor an outstanding doctor? At that given point in time, when they can detect those differences and do what needs to be done. It's not loose. So that is what it is. That requires so much knowledge, so much dedication, so much intricacies. So same thing, you want to solve the equation about your existence here, which is a big, huge, fundamental problem. And you want some magic to do it. Not possible. So that means any higher learning requires dedication, hard work, intricacies, nuances, knowing. This, in fact, even more, because you have to what? Understand the whole. In gynecology, you are only understanding what? The uterus and how the delivery, that is the subject matter of this knowledge. In here, what is the subject matter? It is all-encompassing. Even that requires so much dedication. Then what to talk of this knowledge. So therefore, please don't make this amazing study frivolous. You think you are like, but it's not frivolous study. It's not simple. It's not small things that we are talking about. Okay? So this Shravanam and Mananam is it's a tight thing, right? Not just, oh yeah, this and So then, what? Mananam. Mananam is what? Removing, yes, you have understood that Shastra is trying to tell me this, that I and Ishvara are one, but I have lived and I still live like an individual, and I feel I'm so not connected to so many things. So how is it possible? Right? means that is your personal doubt. Now you have understood what Shastra wants to say. Now you have to make what Shastra is saying your own understanding. So that's a second level, and that is what we call manana. Then suppose, and every time you remove doubt, your personal doubt, and in the teaching itself, right? So people are telling me here that we learn a lot when you ask us questions. Because it makes us think about things that probably it would have taken us 2 years to think about. You see what I mean? If I ask you, then you have to give it a thought that that question may have come up in your mind maybe 2 years from now. So that means if you don't have questions, then we raise questions. The teaching raises questions and answers those questions so that it improves your understanding. The third thing is what? Nididhyasanam. Nididhyasanam we didn't do in this class, but we saw it in the Bhagavad Gita class. It is contemplating on what you understand. So many people ask this question, do you first understand whole of Shastra and then you contemplate? Or as and when you understand little parts, then you contemplate it? What is the answer?
You contemplate while you understand.
First understand.
At the same time, more than
Exactly.
It's better to start once instead never.
Exactly. So what happens is, suppose in these 6 days, what all we have covered? We have covered everything, right? We've covered nature of Ishvara, we've covered nature of Atma, we've covered nature of Adhyasa, all that we have covered. Now, it's not like you have to understand all of this 100% and only then contemplate. Contemplation has 2 stages. What is the first level of contemplation? Suppose today the topic was, in the class, topic was pramana. Suppose. What is pramana? What is a means of knowledge? You can contemplate on that to ensure that you understand it right. It's not like you only have to contemplate only on reality.
So it should go hand in hand.
Absolutely. Suppose the next day the topic was what? The nature of I. Then you can contemplate. You don't need to know everything. You can concentrate on that in order to what? Understand that correctly. Do I understand this correctly? Try to see it from all angles to see whether I get it or I'm just buying it. You see what I mean? Then the next day, suppose I talk about Ishvara, then you can think about what? Ishvara. The way I have talked about it. Just bring to your mind and see how much you really understand. Right? Then slowly, what you also have to start doing is start putting all these different pieces together to make a coherent one vision. So that means what is me and what is Ishvara, how is it all related, where there are differences and when there is no difference. So that means each one you try to understand separately, then each one in connection with the other. Do you understand? Where does it all fit? In terms of the vision, one vision. So that means this is what we call, either different paths or different connections, until the time that each one is completely understood and its connection with others is completely understood. There is no even one little deviation. Then what we call is the last piece is complete. The last piece is put, the vision is completely clear. Now, the question is, will you still continue to contemplate Nididhyasanam? Yes.
Continue.
Why? Wonderful.
In order to remove or resolve whatever habits of thought are still there which prevent one from living visions.
Wonderful. So that means there are two things what we make slight distinction. Even though with reference to knowledge there is no distinction, but we do make a distinction in the tradition. One is called Brahmavid and the other one is called what? Brahmanishta. There is a slight difference. So we will see the difference. Okay? So that means to get to knowledge you have contemplated, and after getting the knowledge you are still contemplating. Do you understand? Even though the word is contemplation, one is what? Before the knowledge takes place, and one is after the knowledge takes place. Both are given the name contemplation. Why? Because both of them are pramana pravritti. It is bringing to your mind what the vision of Vedanta is saying. Okay? Now, what we make a distinction between is okay, we need to actually make different Brahmavid and Brahmanishta.
These are two ways of contemplation.
No, this is talking about the person. One already, one knows. Brahma. Okay, knows Brahman, and this is Brahman. Brahmanishta is the one whose vision is very well established in the knowledge of Brahman. Why should you make the distinction like this?
One has already become and one is becoming.
No. Here both no. So okay, so that means what Mrinalini is saying is, actually she is adding a third category. Here the one who is wanting to know Brahman. This is what we call Jignasu. The one who wants to know. And this Jignasu, as one listens to Shastra, has growing clarity. As the teaching one is exposing to, the person begins to understand, but the person cannot claim that the one really understands. This is why at this time, suppose you are beginning to understand a few things and you start thinking, I am Brahmavid, what will happen? You will not engage further to try to understand it accurately, because you tell yourself, yeah, I've listened to this, and I kind of, understand. So what here you have to make the distinction. So what Mrinalini is talking about is the distinction between a Jignasu and Brahmavid. What Mrinalini is saying is, one is yet to know, even though one has heard, one is yet to know it exactly. Right? This is one who is yet to know.
Within the process.
Yeah, in the process, and in that process, there is what we call growing clarity.
Can you repeat the name? The Sanskrit name?
Jignasu. Okay? So that means this person is yet to know, and even growing clarity, suppose two are Jignasu, both don't know, both have some clarity, even that can have gradation, right? So that means somebody has understood relatively little bit more, somebody knows a little, or you yourself will find that you think that I've listened to this again. So think about when you heard it the first time and when you heard about it, heard it the third time. What happens? Your understanding increases, right? So Swamiji used to always make fun. And he used to say that people come to me and say, Swamiji, you're becoming a better teacher. He says, yeah, because now I'm understanding a little more. So Swamiji used to say that I'm saying what I'm saying, but your understanding is increasing. So it seems to you as though I'm becoming a better teacher. Adhyasa. Right? So that means what is important to understand is when there is a growing class, even you don't even compare yourself with others. As you go on listening to what this Shastra is talking about, your understanding is not like the first class you didn't understand anything, or the first retreat you did not understand anything. You did understand a few things, but second time you listen, you refined it further. The third time you listen, you further refine it. So this is what we call growing clarity. And you're yet to know entirely the complete nature of Brahman. So this is what Mrinalini calls the one who is yet to know. Okay? Now this Brahmavit, Brahma is this knowledge of Brahman, Vit is the knower of Brahman. So here, what it means is the knowledge has already taken place. Okay? And what did I say? How does the knowledge take place? Example. How does the knowledge take place? For any knowledge to take place, what do you need?
Pramana.
Yeah. But when can you say, Pramana to you, everybody is using now. What is the stage when you can say that there is, that this Jignasu is also using Pramana? Right? It's not like this Jignasu is not using Pramana. At this point, what makes you shift from being a Jignasu to a Brahmavit?
Complete clear.
Completely clear knowledge. How did we describe it?
100%.
Huh?
100% clear.
100% clear, that's how we describe. And when we gave it a technical thing called, when there is Akhandakara Vritti. You understand? Akhandakara Vritti is that Vritti which has, when can you say that Vritti alone has produced total knowledge?
But the ignorance is removed.
The
And there's no more picture.
Excellent. Right? Until then, what happens is we keep creating some image for the other, which is not a bad thing. Please don't think it's a bad thing, because only that will help you to go to that final reality. In the final, that vritti, which totally removes the ignorance about Brahman, has two characteristics. That vritti does its function of removing the ignorance, but it doesn't have the image, the corresponding image. Why doesn't it have a corresponding image? Because awareness is not to be understood as an object. Any object, when you understand, your mind has to create an image of that thing that it has to understand. You understand? So at this point, if there is an akhandakara vritti, which has really done the job, it's not growing clarity anymore. It is that vritti which finally gives you absolute clarity. At this point, you are no longer called a jignasu. You are who? Brahmavit. So what it means is, the knowledge is as clear as it can be. Okay? So that is what we call akhandakara. So after that, why one more thing?
When I make that understanding my own. So over there, you said there are two levels. One is understanding and then one is making the understanding my own.
Okay, exactly. So it's true, but absolutely. See, understanding is always your own. Understanding is never of somebody else. That's a way of expressing. But what it actually refers to, what you are saying, what it actually refers to is what Timur is saying. And even if this knowledge, this vritti has taken place, the mind has its habitual way of engaging with the world. Habitual way means an habitual orientation that I am this much and everything else is away from me. This habitual, because see, one is what your mind is getting close to reality and the mind has got the reality. The second is what? There are two processes. See, even in psychology, they have two processes. One is, suppose you go with a given problem, right, to a psychologist. You yourself, you don't know what exactly is the nature of the problem. The psychologist hopefully will make you understand what the nature of the problem is, but along with that understanding, there is also some emotion, which is pain or whatever. Suppose you understand now, before you didn't understand, you understand now what is causing the pain. Is the pain going to go away the minute you understand? It has its own life. You understand? The understanding has to precede the feeling. Feeling will go as a result of knowledge, but not exactly at the same time. You have to understand that. It has its own, it has a time, there is a time lag between understanding and the actual going of the pain. Without understanding, pain cannot go, but even after understanding, pain takes a little longer to.
How come? What is the explanation for that?
This is how, what I say, the mind has different processes, right? So the mind is multifaceted. So we saw cognitive functions, we saw emotion functions. They all are there. They don't, they don't always are all at the same speed and at the same, that's why you call different functions. You see what I mean? But in order for this Brahma, this vritti to take place, already there is a lot of maturity. Don't think that this kind of vritti will just take place like that, right? What we saw is, in order for your mind to even reach this point, it has to have maturity. What kind of maturity? No confusion with reference to dharma. No, ability to some resilience to situations that come and go. Emotional maturity. All this is a precondition to this. Don't think that somehow the vritti will take place. You see that? All this is very much there, right? Emotional maturity, good self-image, connection to Ishvara, acknowledging your helplessness and prayerfulness. Because these are facts. And instead of dwelling on your helplessness, what to actually release yourself from that helplessness by prayers. All this is already there, without which you can't graduate from being Jignasu to Brahmavid. Do you understand? One second. But suppose you say, oh, all this is already done, so why again there is a stage from here to here?
We say that it is because once we get the knowledge, karma stops, we don't accumulate. But because of previous karmas, there is still some unseen result that somehow manifested even after the knowledge takes place.
Very good. And the impression of those on you can be very, very strong. Very true. Excellent. Yeah,
No, I
Sajini?
was going to say that is it just the remnants of karma which are just.
Yeah, remnants of karma, and also the mind, exactly, the mind and its patterns of thinking. Suppose, I think I like your comment yesterday when I was talking about the avidya of an individual is connected to the avarana shakti of Maya, which makes it anadi. So then you said, oh my God, I now see the magnitude of the word avidya. It is not some small little ignorance that I am solving. It is something which is anadi. And I have lived lifetimes after lifetimes after lifetimes with this orientation. Right? So the mind is also not only within this lifetime, but there is a whole big orientation problem there, which is not just belonging to this lifetime, it is belonging to the human mind and So this is why this is something, as Rio said, that as situations arise, what will happen is, and even your own orientations, right? They don't immediately go away even though this knowledge has taken place. Vivek, you had a question?
No, more a comment. I mean, can we also say that at the first level of knowledge, it's more at the intellectual level that you understand the concept, if you will, and the final or the next level of knowledge is when it almost permeates everything else you do and becomes part of you.
See, here I would not call it just intellectual knowledge, because you do understand that Atma is everything. It's not like totally just an idea that you have or a concept that you have in mind. But you're right, between that proper understanding and living, you can have all of this, but it still may not permeate every action and how you look at every situation. So making that something which is, you can't be away from, right? So that means that not that situation arises and I'm again like feeling helpless, you know that. So that means that knowledge, it flows through you effortlessly.
So on a personal note, I will share this with the rest of the group. When I first came about 6 years ago for that retreat,
Yeah.
And again I was blown away by those 8-9 days of what I thought I understood. I think Swamiji and Videsh and you also said to me that what you have now got is grasp these concepts, but what you don't realize is that your life will now change. And that time I did not understand, because as the intellectual I got it, and the concept was there. But as time has gone on, I find that I am changing, and that understanding is becoming a deeper part of me in different parts of what I do.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
See, that is good, because he's pretty smart. So I don't want to talk about what all he has done and what all he has accomplished, because that's not the purpose here. But he's quite, I mean, he's, in the normal sense of words, he's extremely successful human being, right? He's been to the best schools in the US, he has been the CEO in a big company in the US. So he's not somebody who is, so he has pretty good, and he came to Swamiji's retreat, and then he thought, as he says, he kind of understood all the logical things and conceptually everything was clear. And he kind of said, wait, let life go on and situations will come. And now, exactly what he's saying is, that it is entering a deeper part of him, and how he looks at situations, how he deals with situations, his overall view of life, his interactions with everybody, everything changes. It's not like you just understand concepts. It's not. Please don't make Vedanta study like that.
But when you're in the Jinyasa phase, your life also changes already.
Absolutely.
And that's the...
Yeah, your life is changing, right? And you can say that I'm well established in knowledge. I think yesterday somebody pointed out, I don't know who it was, I think it was Shingi, and I think she repeated so beautifully. She says, yeah, then at that point you say, no matter what happens to me in my life, I don't know what is to come. I'm not constantly trying to control life, to get exactly what I want. This is a scared jiva who's so afraid, who's so insecure. He wants to control every variable and get it to move according to its wishes, and if it doesn't, is upset. This is jiva. And she very beautifully said that when you understand it, let anything come. Why? Because it is not outside Ishvara. It's not outside your every problem has a solution. It's not outside your capacity to solve. You may not have the outcome that you always want, but you can always come to terms with it by understanding the order of Ishvara and not carry the burden and not carry the resentment in you. That you have that, you are given that capacity. You have to collapse that capacity. So
Once
that
you are
means
totally
when,
established.
one second, please let me finish with my ideas, because if I, otherwise what happens is that, let me just finish with my ideas. Okay, so when that doesn't, when that happens, what is a life like? Tell me. You completely are relaxing in the lap of Ishvara. Really.
Then it's like a flow.
And it's a flow. Life begins to flow. And neither you're in a denial, nor you're trying to keep yourself in some artificial equilibrium and delude yourself. The need to show everyone how clever I am and how smart I am and how much I know, all this just dissipates. And you just live as a person who's just grateful that you came on this earth knowing so little and some blessing that you understood this, that so many things had to work. You have to be thankful to your parents, your grandparents, your teachers, and your spiritual teacher who held your hand and made you see, made you from what to what. So that means it's just, the more you understand, less the pressure of any kind. Any kind. Neither you have to prove anything to yourself, nor to the world, nor to anything. You live in the glory of what you understand. That is when we say that the knowledge is completely complete. That is what we call Brahmanishta. No more any agenda left. So this is what is the difference between Brahmavid and Brahmanishta. Now that Brahmavid itself, to get here itself requires working. But to get from here to here requires a little further working. Okay? Now, it is up to you. You can decide where you are here. But if you're confusing, if you're here and you kind of delude yourself to believe that you're here,
then you can't be Brahmanishta.
then exactly. So that means what will happen again at every level, if you have stopped until you get here, Ishvara will produce situations which will take you here, move you away from the artificial equilibrium and bring you to the reality. Okay? Now, questions. Yeah, Ashok, you had a question.
My question was that once you are established in awareness or Brahma, where are the remnants of any karma or what?
The remnants of karma goes. Karma goes, yeah. Because you understand that you are awareness, but you still, the connection with this body and mind still remains. We saw that it is Vyavaharika. It is Ishvara Srushti. So that means when you came on this earth, you came with given prarabdha. Until the prarabdha is over, your body will remain. And each body, suppose there are 5 wise people, they will all have very different life. Why? Because why? Yeah, they came with different karma. In this lifetime they've solved and they have come to know the true nature, but they all still have different karmas. And as different karmas are there, life will unfold the way it has to unfold. And the mind with which you deal, it also still remains. The mind is already very fine mind, but it doesn't mean that every response is always going to be, where is the knowledge taking place? Tell me, in the mind. Where is the habitual thinking? It's also in the mind. So this is what I say, that knowledge can precede that going of the habitual thinking. Like I showed in the case of psychology, right? That the person has understood where my problems are coming from. It's over. That understanding is complete for the time being, if you can compare, right? But the reminiscence of this emotion is still there. Why? You can say, how can that be there? Hey, it's the experience of everyone that is there. That's why we capture the antakarna in terms of various functions. There is not one mind, there are different functions. And different functions behave differently. Till the whole process is completely complete, when your emotions, your intellect, your memory, your eye image, it has percolated, the knowledge has percolated through all the different processes, then it is what we call Brahmanishta. Otherwise there can be remnants. Is it clear? Yuta. It's gone. Okay. So that means the Brahmanishta is, in fact, it's interesting. So contemplation, nididhyasanam, is before the knowledge takes place, in order to get what Vedanta is saying, and it continues after the knowledge takes place. Okay? So this habitual thinking, and in fact, it's very interesting. What I want to tell you is, you know, the last few years of Swamiji, he was not physically keeping too well. He had multiple problems, and you know, he had so many medications to take and all that. And sometimes he was, you know, he had physical pain and things like that. So the first thing that people would tell him is, suppose he has pain, Swamiji, today you don't go to the class, you rest. They will tell him. He will say, going to the class is what? Coming back to the vision. When my mind comes back, because you have to be in the classroom, and not only you have to bring to your mind, you have to explain to others. That takes your regard, even though it's totally understood. It's not like the understanding, but when you make that effort to bring it to your mind and to explain it, what he says is, it actually helps me to deal with my pain. So don't tell me that because I have pain, I should sit at home and not go to the class. The very going to the class is what something which is not only a pleasure for me, it makes, so that means, no, suppose you say, all this I understand. Even if you really understand, so bringing it actively to your mind is so important. So important because it allows your mind to revel in it. This is why after 35 years of learning with him, right, whenever there was his class, he would not do anything but go and listen to him. I myself was a teacher, but why do you still need to listen to him? It's lovely to be, what, hearing about the reality from a master like him. You always, today he expressed it like that. Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. You don't tell yourself, I know this and I also teach this, so what? You see this? So that means that it's almost like, you know, you need food every day. You say, I've eaten yesterday. Every attitude. You said, I have practiced ahimsa yesterday. You need it today.
So it becomes your breath. Become one with knowledge, and every time you get a chance that I'm just moving away from it.
Exactly. In the sense that, absolutely. I mean, what better can there be that I can be doing today than to share this vision with somebody else? Any opportunity that Ishvara gives to share this vision, I'm more than happy, more than ready. This is the attitude. So that is what you say, and more you do it, more what? You actually, you know, initially it's interesting. Initially when you are a teacher, you have to prepare, and even today I prepare. If you you want to see my notes? Right? Before every retreat I sit and I prepare and I spend hours. Hours. But when I come here, what happens? I almost feel God, Ishvara, talks through me. So that means, it's not like, that is not, oh yeah, Ishvara speaks, so I don't have to do my job. I have to do my job. But that situation, this set of people, this setting requires a given flow. And that comes because of your connection with Ishvara. So as a teacher, not only you have to have your vision right, but you must have that connection. In that connection, Timur, is love. Is love. Because there is love for teaching, there is love for communicating. I'm not indifferent to what you understand.
That I told yesterday.
It's not like I have prepared my thing and I'm just blurting out what I have to say and I don't know what you understood. I don't care what you understood as long as I've done my job. That's not a teacher. Cannot connect.
But that is true for every work that you do.
Every work that you do. The more you find your connection, the better you will be at anything that you do. Right? So that means this love for knowledge, love for sharing, love for being precise, love for what the tradition and what taking utmost care that I don't knowingly or unknowingly what kind of take people on tangent. That is also expression of love. Love for knowing, love for truth, love for people who are coming and listening to you, all an expression of love. Don't restrict love to an emotion.
So your efforts and your love makes you effortless.
Yeah, exactly. The efforts and love along with this blessing, which is the knowledge, makes it effortless. At one point, the teaching becomes effortless. So this is what we say is this knowledge. Now, we have to listen to the student, what he has to say. Okay. Let's see this. The student, like you all, is extremely clever because he now wants to convey to the teacher that I have understood. So now see how he is expressing himself. So confusing if you do, but it's interesting how he is very, very clever. Okay, he says, "Na aham manye suveda iti." Okay, naha na veda iti veda cha. Yaha naha tat veda naha na veda iti veda cha. What? What is this? Now look at this English translation. It's interesting. I do not consider I know Brahman well, nor do I not know. I know and I do not know as well. Among us, whoever understands the statement, it is not that I do not know. I know and I don't know as well. He knows that. Decipher. Okay, your exam. Decipher the statement. How is ingenious? Actually, this is a student who has understood. He has understood. In the Upanishads, in the commentaries of Acharya, this person is the one who has understood.
It's like manifested and unmanifested. Knowledge, he gets it and at the same time he realizes, no, I have to get more.
No, you should know that you don't know.
And you, yeah.
Is it that ignorance and knowledge go along and they're intertwined, so you know that as knowledge until this level there is still ignorance?
Depends on the standpoint. If from one point we don't have any image of what we know, how can we say that we know? Sure. At the same time, we think that we are not sure. So
It's yet to be established.
Okay, now you guys are I'm so happy. You're totally fearless. You're the same. It's wonderful, lovely. This is very nice because you don't have inhibition. Oh my God, what if I make a mess of myself? What if I say something crazy? Right? That means this really, that love for knowledge comes out like everybody can have. Wonderful. This is, I see it as my achievement because if I make you lose all your inhibitions and all your self-judgments about you, I'm a successful teacher.
That's true.
The problem is if I say I know Brahman, I'm making to an object.
Super. This is how Adi Shankaracharya explains it. Super. Okay, wonderful. Okay, now, say it out. Wonderful. This is exactly the commentary of Adi Shankaracharya. Say.
If I say I know Brahman, still I'm the knower and Brahman is the object.
Excellent. Suppose I say, I think that was Vido's question earlier, right? If I say, or somebody's question, I don't know. If I say I know it, by very statement, I make what?
I give it an attribute.
I make it as an object because I know. See, please understand the language, English language or any language. Whether you understand English or you understand or you express it in Sanskrit is always the same. See, I know Brahman. In this case, what is the subject of the sentence? I. What is the verb? No. And what is an object? Brahman. Right? So this is exactly what Karl is saying. Suppose I make this statement in Sanskrit. Aham Brahman Veda. I know Brahman. What will I do?
I'm making Brahman the subject.
I will make Brahman the object. So therefore, this very clever student says, I cannot say that I know Brahman because if I said it, Brahman will become an object. Super.
So
now, different.
No, you have taught us, so we cannot say we don't know.
Super. Very. Now,
so both is difficult to say.
Very
Maybe you have a sentence how we can express it.
Excellent. Nor I can say I don't know it because if I said that I don't know it, that means I didn't understand what you said. Do you understand? So I do understand what you said, but so neither I can say I don't know it, nor I can say that I know it because if I say it like that, it will become an object. Then start. Wonderful. 100 on 100.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
How is it going on? He's saying, I know and I don't know as well, but among all of us understand what this means, because we are all sitting here listening to you, knowing that Brahman is not an object itself or being in my body. This is what he wants to say.
Okay. So what he then says is, the one who understands what I'm saying also knows. Do you see that? The one who understands, if this goes above you, what it means is, you still have a little bit more listening to do. But suppose you understand that what neither I can give any attribute, nor I can claim that I don't know it. So that means I am understanding what is as it is, without any attributes. And the one who understands this expression, through this expression, what I am trying to convey, that person also knows. What a way to explain. Look at the student. Quite incredible, the expression. Good. Thanks for deciphering it. Really,
but then a teacher will feel that really you have not done, then he will go on telling again and again. But how teacher will...
So that's why he again says, but I do know it. So that means, I don't know it as an object. I can't say I don't know it. I do know it, but not as an object. And one among us who understands this also understands. So that is the entire verse. Okay?
You can put it in simple words.
You can, But this is like a riddle. It's like Andre, right? He says there is a party, and in that party, apple is allowed, right? And then what else is allowed? Right? He could have said more simply that anything with 2 letters is allowed. Yeah, sure. But what will happen? No fun.
But this is also, when we read these spiritual passages, we have to access a different part of our brain. We're literally being, the day-to-day mind is being challenged to think completely differently, and only then can we understand.
We don't understand.
Because we can't
Super.
hear the alphabet.
Loud. Wonderful. What Susan is saying is something so important, Susan. Actually, I have to, what you convey is wonderful. I have to tell you a story about my life and my experience, right? So I'm a teacher, and there was one person who was coming to me pretty bright, right? And every time, suppose, I started explaining certain intricacies of things, he will always go back to dictionary and say, no, but you are deviating from dictionary meaning. So what? And so I said, then if you think that dictionary meaning is going to give you the meaning, your life is very simple. Just look up the dictionary meaning of each word and put it, and you'll understand it. Why are you here? So that means we are so stuck with our own way of learning and and you have to keep it away. Because otherwise you can say, why is she not just translating each word and just giving us the meaning? If I did that, I would be a very mediocre teacher.
And it also it's about the implied.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The whole of Vedanta is not
implied.
about Vachaka, it's about Lakshya. You have to use the words, but you have to take the student to the implied meaning of the words, because no limited word can convey limitlessness. So that requires the skill of the teacher to take your buddhi from the direct meaning to implied meaning. And every time if the teacher takes you to implied meaning and you keep saying, oh, the teacher is not sticking to the direct meaning, what? So this is why a certain amount of buddhi, and this is what she says, our whole pattern of learning, our whole pattern of thinking is in a given direction. This is out of the box, totally out of the box. So then your mind has to reach there. In order to reach there, what happens is, yes, some of the processes which are logic and all are used to aid that, but ultimately you have to have a open, creative mind which is able to what? See something which otherwise is different from anything else that we have known so far. So, Surya.
Yeah, just one thing which is interesting. Somebody told me, and Swamiji also was telling when he was explaining this verse, that initially the first time you read, it was like what? It's like totally, what is this Chinese, what is this, like, I don't understand, what is this Greek or this Turkish, and it's like totally paradoxical. The guy is saying, I know and I don't know. Hey, come on. And yet, and I know that I don't know, and I know that I know, and they both are at the same time. So it is, as she is saying, Susan is saying, it is like cutting through our usual way of thinking, which is either you know or you don't know. Okay? So the use of paradox, you see here in this Upanishad, okay, it's not only in Zen and in Buddhism or in Taoism. You have here a perfect example of the usage of word in a paradoxical way to make you think further and get you out of your usual ways of thinking and refine your thinking, refine your understanding, right? So it's beautiful. There are plenty. I can give you so many others, but it will come maybe in some other Upanishad. It's full of so-called paradoxes. You know this Kwan in Buddhism, in Zen? Yes. Okay, same. We have it also. Okay? And no surprise because they all come from here. Okay.
Okay. The next is what We will do in the next class. I'll finish chapter 2 today. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.